The Doomed Prince, by Egyptian Classical Tales. Brought to you by TellStory.net, stories from around the world. In the days when Egypt ruled far beyond the cataracts of the Nile, a pharaoh and his queen longed for a child to inherit the throne. For years they prayed and made offerings at every temple, but no child came. At last the queen gave birth to a son, and the palace celebrated for 7 days. On the 7th day, the 7 Hathors came, divine beings who appear at the birth of those touched by fate. The pharaoh and his court knelt in silence as the goddesses gathered around the infant's cradle and studied him. When the eldest Hathor finally spoke, her voice carried the weight of what could not be changed.
This child will not die by old age or sickness. His death will come by the bite of a snake, by the jaws of a crocodile, or by the fangs of a dog.
Then the Hathors were gone, and the celebrating had turned to grief. Determined to thwart the goddesses, the pharaoh had a great stone tower built on a high cliff, away from the river and away from the roads. There the prince grew up, cared for by servants and tutored by priests, surrounded by everything except the world itself. No dog was ever permitted near him. One day, watching from his high window, the prince saw a man walking along the road below with a dog trotting faithfully at his heels. The prince had never seen such a creature before.
"What is that animal?"
he asked his attendant.
"A dog, my lord. A loyal creature that follows its master and guards him."
The prince watched the pair until they disappeared from sight. From that moment, he wanted nothing more than a dog of his own. When the pharaoh heard of his son's longing, he could not bring himself to deny the boy entirely. A small puppy was brought to the palace, gentle and harmless, the servants assured him. The prince was overjoyed, and the two became inseparable. But the isolation could not last. On his 18th year, the prince came before his father and asked to see the world.
"I know the prophecy, but I cannot spend my life hiding from fate. A life lived in fear is barely a life at all. Let me go out into the world and face whatever the gods have written for me."
The pharaoh grieved deeply but could not hold him forever. He gave the prince fine weapons, swift horses, and his blessing, though it cost him greatly. The prince rode out with his dog running beside his chariot, and his father watched from the walls until the dust had settled on the empty road. His journey took him far beyond Egypt. The prince traveled north and east, through the deserts of Sinai and into the foreign kingdom of Naharan. In that country, he heard of an unusual challenge. The king had a daughter who lived in a tower 70 cubits high, and he had decreed that whoever could climb to her window without ropes or ladders could claim her hand in marriage. Many young men from many kingdoms had tried. None had succeeded. The prince disguised himself as a minor Egyptian nobleman and joined the other suitors gathered at the base of the tower. Looking up at the smooth, sheer walls rising impossibly high above him, he understood why so many had failed. He waited until night, then began to climb. His years of training had made him strong, and he found tiny holes in the stonework that others had overlooked. It was slow, agonizing work, but by the time the sky began to lighten in the east, he had reached the top. He pulled himself through the window and found himself in a chamber lit by oil lamps. A young woman sat up in her bed, staring at him.
"You climbed,"
she whispered.
"I climbed,"
he said. She rose and called for her father, who declared the contest won. The Egyptian prince had succeeded where all others had failed. The princess was pleased with her unusual suitor, and over the days that followed, the two came to know each other well. She was clever and composed, and he was honest and kind. Love grew between them, and they were soon married in a ceremony that filled the palace with celebration. On their wedding night, the prince told his wife about the prophecy.
The 7 Hathors spoke over my cradle. 3 deaths were foretold for me, by a snake, by crocodile, by dog.
He looked at the dog curled near the door.
I have tried not to think on it too often.
The princess was silent for a moment. Then she took his hand.
Then we will be watchful together. I will not let any of those 3 things touch you if I can help it.
Her vigilance was soon tested. Some weeks after the wedding, the princess woke in the dark to find a large snake gliding silently across the floor toward her sleeping husband. There was no time to wake him. She set a bowl of milk near the snake to draw it away from the bed, and when it poured some to drink, she struck and killed it. In the morning she told the prince what had happened.
The first danger has passed,
He said, looking at the dead snake with a strange, quiet expression.
You kept your word.
But fate still waited. Some time later, they traveled to an estate near the Nile that the king of Nahran had given them as a wedding gift. One evening the prince walked alone at the water's edge and encountered an enormous crocodile lying in the shallows, unnaturally still, watching him with old, patient eyes. What passed between them, the tale does not fully say. Some who tell the story speak of a water spirit the crocodile was bound to fight, and of a strange arrangement made between the beast and the prince. Others say only that the prince walked away from the river unharmed, and the second prophesied death had come no closer. When he returned to the house that evening, his wife looked at his face and understood.
2 have passed,
She said,
Yes. There is still the third.
After that, a quieter dread settled over the prince. He still loved his dog. The animal had been with him since boyhood, loyal and steady in every way. But the third prophecy lived in his mind like a splinter he could not remove. He found himself watching the dog differently, not with anger, but with a sorrow he could not explain. His wife saw it.
You cannot know how it will happen. You cannot know that it will happen through your dog at all. Do not let the fear poison what is still good.
He knew she was right. But knowing did not make the fear go away. Here the ancient papyrus breaks off. The scroll was damaged long ago, and what became of the doomed prince has never been recovered. Whether he found peace with his fate, or whether the third prophecy was fulfilled, the tale does not say. It remains, like many things from that distant age, unfinished, and perhaps that is its truest ending.